What is going on, Pacers Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice Pacers. Guys, the Indiana Pacers win another one against the Philadelphia 76ers here as they go into a little bit of a break here to be in the middle of this month. They win 115 to 102 against the Philadelphia 76ers. And as we said, we'll have a 5-day resting period before they go on the road to face the San Antonio Spurs. Cody, once again, man, we look at what the Pacers have done here. Again, the only loss that they have had yet to come so far in January has been against the Cleveland Cavaliers on the second game of a back-to-back. And the Pacers have now won basically. They have won 7 of their last 8 games, and they continue this impressive run.
Yeah, and actually to add to that, 8 of their last 9, Derek. They're 8-1 in January. Absolutely fantastic job by the Pacers, because, we saw this even last year. There's these teams that, you don't necessarily look at them and say, man, they're going to be, this team that's going to come out and challenge us. And, I think tonight Philadelphia really did challenge them. There was moments in this game, Derek, where you're like, oh boy, are we going to see shades of the 2024 Pacers, right? Are we going to see shades of what happened last year when you lost some games against some teams that didn't have a great record, weren't doing very well, and you kind of let them hang around to this game? And there were certain moments when the Pacers did, but overall, Derek, great to see, even though it wasn't the prettiest game, great to see them take care of business and at the end of it all, win by double-digit points. So, yeah, it wasn't the prettiest game. Started off pretty ugly for Indiana, and then they kind of started to get things going as they went around and obviously got a strong finish to, because I know at one point they were still only up by, I think it was 4 or 5, or maybe even 6. They were up by single digits, and then all of a sudden they started pulling away in the last couple minutes. So, yeah, overall, not the greatest game in the world. You'll have those, but I think for Indiana, a game that you needed to have, like you said, you're now going to have an opportunity for your starters and all your guys to have some days off, some days to rest a little bit, especially for guys like Tyrese. And, obviously, getting Nesmith back, still kind of on that limited minutes count. Good to get those guys some much needed rest there, and just everybody, get some much needed R&R. So, yeah, to finish off the month of January in this stretch that you've been playing against some good teams as well. This is probably one of the worst teams the Pacers have played in this stretch, and so. You always, I feel like every year in certain points during the season, you have those games, those kind of trap games, right? Those games that you should win, but then there's always those teams that kind of are scrappy and they come out of nowhere and they take you by surprise. And this kind of had trap game written all over it for the Pacers. But, credit to them, even when things got tough and it looked like potentially, Philadelphia could start to run away with it a little bit. Indiana was able to take care of business and do what they needed to do despite not starting the greatest in this game.
Yeah, you're right. It felt like last year, it felt so often like the Indiana Pacers would often play to their competition. Whereas what we have seen from this team for a good chunk of the last month has been, they've been pretty much beating anyone. They've been playing up to every team's level of competition and beyond that. And these teams that, the Pacers should be beating, but typically they don't because they kind of slack every once in a while, Cody. It doesn't feel like that this time around. The Pacers are handling business. And like you said, this was a very difficult game for them. In the second quarter, the Pacers kind of started pulling away. And then it came right back into it. Philadelphia even taking the lead again in the third quarter and even bringing it back close late in the fourth. So this was a back-to-back for quite a bit of it. And of course, this is a Philadelphia team without their star big man in Joel Embiid. But nevertheless, this is still a Philadelphia team with a lot of ballers. And, unfortunately for the 76ers, it's just one of those long-term things where you can only get so much production out of your few stars. You can't really beat a team like the Pacers, who are just so good at spacing it out, which is definitely a great thing for the Pacers. I will say this, Cody, before we get into the actual team stats here, I don't know if you saw the graphic earlier today that was released about the Indiana Pacers. It took basically the last 10 games of every team and talking about their efficiency numbers on offense, overall, and defense. Overall, the Indiana Pacers are the third most efficient team, Cody, in the entire NBA. Right now, second in offensive, and they're seventh in overall defensive numbers. Defense, Cody. I'm not talking seventh overall. I'm talking defensive wise. The Indiana Pacers are the seventh best overall defensive team over the last 10 games. And that goes to show you again why the Indiana Pacers have been on this stretch, because the defensive numbers have kept up with the offensive numbers. We mentioned it a few games ago that the amount of times where opponents have struggled to score 100 points on the Indiana Pacers over these last few weeks. And I mean, that's no coincidence that the Pacers defense has risen to the occasion, and it's why they're competing the way they are.
Yeah, when you're holding teams under 100 or right near 100, I mean 102 in a game that you didn't play your best, I mean you'll take that, right? And so, yeah, I think you've said it. Like the defense, even though not every guy is a defensive stud on this team, it just feels like there's a lot more buy-in this year and a lot more discipline as well from this Pacer team. I mean, a team that just routinely felt like they just weren't even trying sometimes on defense. You just kind of wonder what is going on there. So, and obviously getting a guy like Nesmith back, Derek, we know what he can do defensively as well. He's that big presence there. It's a small forward position. So, yeah, I agree with you. It's been cool to see the Pacers not just be, we know they can shoot the lights out of the basketball. We know that. But not just to be an offensive juggernaut and, they might score 150, but they might let up 160. Like, not that kind of deal, but they can actually play some defense. I think you're absolutely right. Even when you have these off games, if you're still playing sound and disciplined defense, I mean, that's great. I mean, that's going to help you win a lot of these games, even if your offense, because you're going to have those days, Derek, where your offense isn't clicking, your offense isn't to the degree it needs to be every game. Like, you'll have that anytime. But if you can still play sound defense, I think that will help you stay in these games and not have these trap games like you had multiple times last year. So, yeah, great to see over the last month or so the Pacers not just great offensively, but defensively as well. That's great to see from them. And, Derek, right now, with this Pacer win, they have 24 wins now on the season. They moved to 24-19. And, Derek, depending what happens here with the Milwaukee Bucks, the Pacers could be moving into fourth very quickly. So we'll have to see on that. But, yeah, it's crazy to think, man, after the Pacers started so poorly. I mean, the first 12 away games, they were 2-10. And so far, now they have just absolutely turned it around in so many different ways. And it's great to see, man. Like you said, they've won.
Think about that. Think about that. You're 2-10 to start the year.
Crazy.
And then now you are 24-19. So you've gone 22-9 over your last 31. So, yep, Indiana Pacers have started to figure it out. It was slow, but they're figuring it out, which is great.
And they're getting pretty healthy, which is important as well. And they're going to have some
guys are back now.
And they get to rest, which is huge.
It'll be interesting to see how they look coming out of the rest. I'm sure that because when a team is in such a good flow like the Pacers are right now, you kind of don't want to interfere with that. The Pacers are playing every other night, really, at this point, and it feels like it's kept them in a rhythm. And you know how it is. Having rest is a good thing if your guys are trying to get back into it, but having too much rest, especially when you're used to playing every other night and you're in the middle of a great streak that you're in, I just hope that 5 days of rest doesn't put the Pacers behind the 8 ball with this momentum that they have right now.
Sure. But yeah, good to for them to have some rest here, and they did what they needed to do here as they kind of closed it out for at least a little bit of time. So great job there by Indiana. Now, Derek, when you look at the individual stats for the Pacers, so overall, Pretty even game all the way around. I mean, Pascal Siakam had the most points and he had 21. So, yeah, he was I would say, the guy that, he had the most minutes, had the most points. He, had the second most rebounds. He had the second most assists on the team. So he did a little bit of everything. He started off pretty slow as well, but really started to find himself in this game. But overall, Derek, when your leading scorer has 21, I think that tells you how much your team had to come together and not just have it be about one player. You often see sometimes where there's like the star that scores 30 plus, and then nobody else really contributes in a major way. But the Pacers had multiple guys tonight outside of Siakam, over 10 points. In fact, they had, Miles Turner had 18. You had 4 guys off the bench who scored 10 plus, that obviously being Ben Shepherd, Thomas Bryant, TJ McConnell, and then you also had Aaron Nesmith off the bench. He only played in 11 minutes and scored 12 points. So, Derek, the last 2 games for Nesmith, last game he scored 9, I believe. He had 9 minutes and scored like 8 points. So, I mean, he is being efficient right now when he's on the court. He is scoring at will. And so, obviously, with the days of rest, you're hoping they can ramp that up a little bit more and he can get more minutes, because if he's being that efficient with that little amount of minutes so far, you can only imagine how good he could be potentially if you ramp up his minutes a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's crazy too, because like it's not even the fact that the Indiana Pacers shot the ball badly tonight. So it's kind of weird that like you see Halliburton only had 9, but he also had 9 assists. Mathurin only had 8 tonight, which is so weird. That is such a weird thing that Mathurin wasn't a bigger part of the offensive game. Nembhard only had 7. So like Siakam and Turner were the only real guys that were actually scoring any kind of effectiveness from the starting lineup. But like you said, you have 4 guys off the bench that had double digits tonight, which is crazy. Naismith with 12 on 11 minutes. Thomas Bryant, 20 minutes today, 12 points. TJ McConnell, 10 points in 16 minutes. Ben Shepherd had 21 minutes tonight. Was a plus 17 with 12 points off the bench as well. Yeah, I mean, honestly, in all honesty, Cody, I mean, this is just going to keep these guys so much more fresh going into this home stretch, because when you got starters like Pascal Siakam had the most minutes today, and he had 35. Like, only one other starter even played 30 minutes today, and it was Tyrese Halliburton, which is crazy. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know if that was the strategy of Rick Carlisle to, just continue to ride the bench the way it is right now. Well, I'll tell you what, man. If you're getting this kind of production out of your bench right now, like I said, it's going to keep everybody fresh for a long time, because if you can keep starters to 28, 30 minutes a night and you're still winning these games against teams like Philadelphia, then yeah, these guys are going to be continuing to have some great times down the stretch when this team's looking to try to get into the playoffs. But yeah, all around great effort from the entirety of the team. This was an entire team effort.
Yeah, and I think you said it. I mean, I think this is why we have belief this team can do things, in the postseason, is because they are so deep. I mean, you had pretty much every person who touched the court tonight had 9+ minutes, from Jarace Walker, who had 9, all the way up to Pascal Siakam, who had 35. It was just a lot of guys. I mean, I'll count here real fast for you, Derek. Said you have your 5 starters. You had Shepherd, you had Bryant, you had McConnell, you had Toppin, you had Nesmith, you had Walker, and you had Furphy and Dennis, who like each had a minute. So, I mean, you talk about that right there, Derek.
Was that 13 guys?
Yeah, that's crazy. That is crazy. All those guys doing that and playing quality minutes for you, you're absolutely right. I mean, we know it's a long season, so to be able to have guys on your bench who can step in and play double-digit minutes on a given night and play well, and it's not this major drop-off like we see with different teams, right, where, oh, man, our bench is so bad, our starters might be fantastic, but our bench comes in and then we give up everything that we gained with our starters. No, it's not the case with the Pacers, and that's why we've said for a while now, the Pacers have the best bench in the NBA because they have guys who can come off and guys who, number one, can jump into the starting lineup if you need them to. I mean, we've seen different guys do that pretty much all season long. But number two, you also have guys who, when they do jump in and they do, fill in some minutes for some of these guys, they will play quality minutes for you. And it's not that big drop off like the majority of NBA benches are. So, yeah, I just love it, man. I love that you have all these guys, and how helpful is that going to be when you get into April? You start to get into the postseason, and you start to, the wear and tear of the season. The from October all the way to where you are in April. I mean, that's a long haul there. So to have guys that can come in, keep you probably as being one of the freshest teams in terms of your guys, I mean, that is so valuable in any sport. It's valuable to have guys that can come in, provide quality minutes, and can do what they need to do to keep you in those games, right? So that is just so valuable in itself to have all these guys who can step in on a given night. And I think a big reason why, yes, the Pacers definitely have some superstars, but they also have some quality guys on the back end. So they've got the upper talent, but they've also got the guys that can step in a pinch if you need them to and still play quality minutes and keep those superstars and some of those rising stars you have as your starters, keep them as fresh as they can, as possible, within the course of a long NBA season. So, yeah, I absolutely love it, man. Shout out to the Pacers bench. Great. And it's great that you can lean on them. And it's great that, Rick Carlisle's doing that you're relying on these guys because they're showing that they can be counted on.
Yep, 100%. I mean, it's a full team effort. Again, Indiana Pacers won 8 of 9 so far in January.
Crazy.
Like we said, guys, they're going to get a small little break here, and then they're going to face the San Antonio Spurs coming next week on Thursday. So make sure you guys keep an eye on that. We'll definitely keep an eye on that as well. You're going to have a back-to-back with the San Antonio Spurs, and hopefully the Pacers will continue to stay on that winning track because right now, this is the best Pacers basketball that they've been playing for quite a while. So Hopefully they can keep that up. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts on the Indiana Pacers and their win over the 76ers. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And as always, go Pacers.